Hello again. Today I'm going to tell you about how I turned a hobby into a business and how I got the hobby to pay for all my toys. I want you to look at this set of figures that are right here in front of me. Now we've got a couple of metal ones here and here and here. We've got a composition here and here. Got a couple of rubber ones here. We've got a tin flat here, and we've got a Comet metal one right here with a moving arm. I would go into, years ago, I was a poor teacher, not a teacher that was poor at the subject, but didn't make much money. And I couldn't afford a whole lot of toy soldiers, and when I bought them, I'd have to kind of watch out how much I spent. So I would go into these antique shops, and I would say, how much is this one and this one? And they'd say, we don't want to break up the set. Now, to me, this didn't look like a set, but to an antique dealer in that era, that was a set. So I couldn't buy them. So as I had told you in one of the other videos, when I was collecting, I found a few of them at an auction, started collecting, and found out that there were other collectors through the antique magazines and so forth. And some of these guys had what we call mail order auctions. And all you needed for a mail order auction was a picture of some figures, a listing, and an envelope and a stamp. You're all set. So when we started doing our auction years ago, I kind of got into it by default. I found out about these auctions, and I contacted this one guy in New York that had an auction, and I said to him, if I have these extra figures, can I send you some and you sell them on consignment? He said, gladly. So I would buy the set. I would keep a couple that I wanted to keep. I would put the rest in a group that went to his sale and came out in a picture similar to that. He would send them out and sell them by mail order. And I sent him about 30 of them, and I didn't hear from him for a long, long time. And finally, I said, hey, I'm going to write to him. That was before the internet, so I couldn't send him an email or anything like that. I'd either have to call him long distance, which would cost me, or send him a letter. So I sent him a letter, and I said, I'd like for you to send me the proceeds for my soldiers after you take out your commission. And I said, I want to send you some really good ones then. Well, when I said really good ones, that spurred him on. A couple days later, I get a check in the mail, and so I thought, well, this guy's okay. So I sent him about 30 really nice ones. And that was probably 45 years ago, and I'm still waiting for my check for those. And that really perturbed me, and I thought, if this guy can do it, I can do it. So I started advertising in the playset magazines, and that I was going to start a mail auction of my own. So about 6 months of advertising, I had about 50 people, and I asked them, I said, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I will send you a picture of figures I have for sale. Now we have to speak a language in the toy soldier world, and some of you that know the toy soldier world know the language, and it's called the language of Richard O'Brien, who wrote the book. He wrote a book on toy soldiers, and it's a big book. And Richard was a friend of mine who I met at some shows, a very nice guy. I have some figures in this book in different places, and he was nice enough to give me a copy of the book and autograph it and everything, and I've used it for years. But this was the price guide and the identification book for toy soldiers. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but this goes on and on and on, and this was the toy soldier Bible, if you will. And these soldiers were known to be, for example, A7, R23 or something of that nature. And what I would do is I would take a picture of them, line them up, take a picture of them, and with the picture, I would have a bid sheet, and it was numbered 1 to whatever. And then when the people got the picture, they would bid on these different individual pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on the description sheet, which went with it, it would have O'Brien's number and what the figures were, and basically the condition. And then a month later, all these bid sheets would come in. I would find out who bid what, take the top ones, make up an invoice, and each month they would send me a new self-addressed stamped envelope with their bids, and I would return that self-addressed stamped envelope to them with the invoice and the new month's set of bids. And so this went on for 20-some years. Here's just some of the different pictures. I'll try to get some close-ups on these in a little bit if you like. But then we got to the place where all these figures were in here, because we had guys like this right here that wasn't in this book. Well, O'Brien came out with a new book, which is called Collecting Foreign-Made Toy Soldiers. And all your Britons and Comets and things of that nature were in this book. So these were 2 books of O'Brien, and I don't think they're in print anymore. They might be. But if you're going to collect toy soldiers, you definitely want to have these books if you can find them. They are out there on the secondary market, and they're not too expensive anymore. Once upon a time, the books themselves were collectible. But anyway, I started out, and I would buy 8 or buy 10, keep 2, sell 8, which would pay for the 2 I bought, and also give me a little extra money. And I built my soldier whole collection, and you can see some of them behind me, and this is just a small fraction of them. And that's how I built my collection up, and I didn't have anything in them. Well, I used to run around to the shows and so forth, besides the dealers, and I'd wear this hat. I buy toy soldiers. And I wouldn't have to ask them. Sometimes these people wouldn't have them on the tables. You go from table to table, and you wouldn't see any toy soldiers, and they'd say, oh yeah, I see your hat. Yeah, I've got a few, and they'll dig them out from underneath the table or whatever. So I found toy soldiers that way. I found them in antique shops. I never found any in any garage sales. Very, very few at auctions. And of course, we didn't have eBay back then. So this went on, like I say, from about 1985 through about 2000, 2010 maybe. I think about 2010 is when I quit doing this. But that's how I built my collection up, and I was able to pay for all these. And I tell people when they ask me, say, how much you got in all these soldiers? And I say, nothing. They say, nothing? How can this be nothing? I said, because I bought 8 and I sold, or I bought 10, I sold 8, I kept 2, and the 2 I kept, built my collection. Plus I took some of the money I made on the other 8 that was beyond the price of the 10, and I bought others. So my entire collection was through buying and selling and setting up a mail order auction. And it was all because one guy was dishonest and beat me out of about 40 soldiers. But you have to pay for an education, I guess, and that's basically what I did with those 40 soldiers. Now I want to talk about these 2 right here. These 2 right here, if you can see, they're missing their guns. Well, this is called the folding rifleman. They had arms that were separate, and a rifle would go on here like this, and it would fold down like so, and then it would fold up. Well, these rifles are missing off these 2, and these are the only 2 I've got like that. I used to have this one right here with the rifle. Never had this one before until recently. But these 2 right here are shelf holders. And what I mean by shelf holders, if you're in the collection of toy soldiers and you get a bad soldier, but you don't have it, you don't have that particular pose, you'll buy that or take it, put it on the shelf, and then when a better one comes along, this one comes off the shelf, the good one goes on, and you're in business. but it's a shelf holder or placeholder until you're ready to get a better one. Now these are expensive. In O'Brien's book, they're probably $100, $150 a piece back then. Now these price guides are more for identifying figures nowadays than they are a price guide, because prices have changed so much over the years. And so if you get these and you use them or study them, just use them to find out what soldiers are out there and what they are, who the makers are. Tells the history of different ones, companies, and things of that nature. But you don't have to try to buy and sell and so forth using those prices. You're better off by going to eBay and checking what the sold prices are on different figures and different things of that nature. Today, this mail auction would never work because people are to the place they want instant gratification, which is the computer. So you go to the computer, you look on eBay, you see how much it is, you bid, you know how you're doing right there, and you can buy it now sometimes, and you're all set that way. But like I say, this worked for me because the internet wasn't in business. We didn't have eBay. This was the eBay of its day. And I don't know if you can see these or not, but here are some of the pictures of the different ones that I actually did once upon a time. All these have come through my hands and have sold by way of mail auction. And I did this, like I say, for 25 years or more, and built the whole collection and paid for it. I talked to some guys in Chicago one time. We talked about collecting, and this was great, I thought. One guy said he collected toy cars, and I said I collected toy soldiers, and someone else collected this, and someone else collected that. And the last guy there, what he said he collected was the greatest collection of all. He said, I collect fond memories. And I thought, that's a great collection. That's a great collection, fond memories. Well, my collecting of toy soldiers have given me many, many, many fond memories. I've met people from all over the country that collect toy soldiers. I've met some important people who are well known, who were out, movie stars and people like that, to collect toy soldiers. I've got a friend in Oregon now, and I live in Ohio. I would never have met him, but he and I communicate often. He's been to my house a few times and stayed for a week here and there. I met him. I've got another buddy up in Minnesota. I got a friend in Pittsburgh. I got friends everywhere. Now, I also, besides going and doing this, where I bought things were toy soldier shows. The toy soldier shows, today, there are several of them around. In Ohio area, we have one in Cleveland. We have one in Columbus, and one in Columbus I think is in October. And in the spring, we have one in Indianapolis or Indiana somewhere. And then there's another one up around the northern part of the state. There used to be one in Michigan, but these were just toy soldier shows. And people at toy soldier shows, if you've never been to one, the show's on Sunday. Well, people show up on, for example, Chicago. That's the big one. That's once a year, and it's normally in September. People show up it's on Sunday. People show up on Friday and Saturday, and they go to their rooms, and they have what's called room trading. Now, room trading, it means you're turning your bed, your dresser, your windowsills, and everything else into shelves for toy soldiers. Your whole bed's covered with it, your dresser's covered with them, and so forth. And people go from room to room on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Saturday before the show. That's right, they start as early as Tuesday sometimes in Chicago. Used to start on Saturday, then it went to Friday, then it went to Thursday, and they're there all week buying and selling soldiers. So you go from room to room, it's all like a bunch of little soldier stores. And then on Sunday, the people close up shop on Saturday night, and they set up for the show, and they have the show on Sunday. But there's a lot of places out there. Several people have asked me, you know, I'd like to have some of these. I'd like to get some of these. Well, check antique shops, check eBay, check some toy soldier shows, things like that. We have something here in Ohio called Mama's Market, and they have soldiers on there. I just got some about 2 weeks ago from a guy 50 miles away, and my brother picked him up for me. But anyway, that's where these two guys here came from. And like I say, I didn't have them. And I bought the group, the set. There was about 50 in it. I took about 20 of them out that I really liked. Maybe not 20, maybe 10, which I don't have room on the shelf for, incidentally. But I kept about 10 of them, and then the other 40 I'll sell, and I'll get my $50 back and maybe a little more. So once again, the collection's still going, and my wife says, you don't need to sell anymore. You don't need to sell anymore. But these soldiers are, they're a little bit of an investment. They are a lot of fun. I don't get them out and play with them, but and I just set them up and they collect dust, and I enjoy people coming and seeing them and things of that nature. So once again, that's my story on how we got going. And if you have a hobby and you can work it around, especially with the computer and all these sites where you can buy and sell, you can pay for your hobby and go from there. Now, if you're playing golf or something like that, I don't know how you do it with that. But if it's a commodity of some type, you can buy and sell and go from there and pay for your thing, and you won't have anything out of your pocket, and you might even build up your checking account a little bit. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the story, and I hope I haven't bored you too much. And if any of you have any questions, you're welcome to message me, and I'll get back with you. And I try to answer all the comments. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, please do so, because I'm going to have many, many, many more. As you can see behind me, this is just a small fraction of them. Many, many more videos coming, and if you like them, I appreciate the comments. And if you don't like them, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to recapture everybody's childhood. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.